A modern samurai must face his greatest challenge, high school. Prepare your textbooks, your sleeves, and your wooden sword. It's time to enter the fantastic world of ASU no Yoichi. Episode 1. In the middle of a mountain, a young samurai warrior ends his daily tasks, which involve using his warrior skills to get lunch, fight ferocious animals, and overcome numerous traps. The young man's name is Yoichi Karasuma, and he has spent 17 years learning the Uchiha Divine Wind swordsmanship style from his father in the mountains. His father is tired of his son, realizing that he has nothing more to teach him, so he orders him to experience life in the city with the Ikaruga family, who can teach Yoichi new martial arts. Our hero's father sends the Ikaruga family a message via bow and arrow, a somewhat old-fashioned medium, especially if we take into account that we are not really living in feudal Japan, but that the story takes place in the modern world. The Ikaruga sisters receive the message, and Ibuki, the older sister, decides to accept Yoichi into her home, despite the reservations of her sisters who do not know their young guest. Later, while walking through the city, our hero meets the delinquent Ryo Washizu, who ridicules Yoichi's samurai clothes in the city, but Yoichi easily defeats him using only the wind emanating from his Bakken blow, which impresses the hero. Offender. However, drawing his sword, wooden or not, is not well received by the local police, who invite the young man to the police station. There, the young man appears, and the police warn him that he must respect the rules of the city. Yoichi appreciates the advice, and when he sees the time, he realizes that he is late for his meeting with the Ikaruga family, so he kindly says goodbye and runs to the mall where the sisters are waiting for him. Outside the mall, the sisters get tired of waiting, so some of them go shopping while Ibuki waits for her guest. While exploring the mall, Yoichi comes across a thief who steals a woman's bag, so he decides to chase him, causing chaos in the place. During the chase, Yoichi unknowingly runs into the Ikaruga sisters, creating embarrassing situations in the process. Later, our protagonist manages to stop the thief and return to Ibuki, a lost Kagome who had lost her way to the bathroom. However, the meeting is interrupted when Yoichi accidentally falls on the roof of a moving train and moves away from the scene. Later, when the train returns, our dejected hero meets Ibuki, who had been waiting, and asks him if he is Yoichi, to which he says yes. The police arrest him again for causing disturbances, but later release him, since the young man apologizes for what happened, and nobody seems to hold a grudge against him. The policemen themselves, who like him, said. In this way, Ibuki takes him to his dojo and introduces him to his sisters, Ayame, Chihaya, and Kagome, who recognize him from his adventures in the mall. Episode 2. Another day begins, and Yoichi wants to commemorate the moment by writing a haiku. Ibuki also starts the day collecting water, while remembering the conversation with her sisters, especially with Ayame, who does not want to know anything about the new visitor staying in her house with her and her sisters. However, the final decision is Ibuki's. So bad luck, Ayame. Yoichi stays. Ibuki enters the dojo and finds Yoichi training. The two stumble into the water when the young samurai tries to help, and when Ibuki reads Yoichi's haiku that mentions his so-called attributes, the young woman is enraged and sends him flying off Ayame's room, falling on the young woman and leaving the two in a rather compromising position. At the request of our hero's father, the two sisters take him to Yako Private High School, where he is in the same class as Washizu, the delinquent he faced the day before, and Ibuki. Washizu is still traumatized from the previous encounter, so he isn't too happy when he discovers Yoichi at his school and instinctively hides behind a tree. All the classmates, including Washizu, are convinced that Yoichi's presence in Ibuki's life is due to a marriage contract, something unusual but traditional in some families. This situation bothers Washizu, who is in love with Ibuki. As Ibuki returns from the bathroom, Ibuki realizes that Yoichi is being questioned by the female students and takes him out into the hallway and punches him once more. Washizu observes the scene, but understands that Yoichi is a womanizer who, although he is committed to Ibuki, disrespects him by looking at other students, so he swears to protect his beloved. Washizu, looking to redeem his reputation, challenges Yoichi to a match with most of the school watching. Meanwhile, Ayame has a meeting with a student counselor who constantly compares her to her perfect sister, both in grades and social skills, angering the young woman, who angrily leaves. During the fight, Washizu and Yoichi agree to fight without weapons, but when Yoichi proves superior, Washizu pulls out two spiked balls that he uses as mitts, but Yoichi easily defeats him without using his Bakken. As Washizu lies defeated on the ground, a kind Ibuki gives him a handkerchief to wipe off before leaving with Yoichi, a gesture that the delinquent truly appreciates, intensifying his love for the young woman. The next day, due to the climate change between the mountain and the city, Yoichi catches a fever. Ayame decides to cook a hot dinner for our hero while Ibuki goes shopping to do the same, but not before arguing with Yoichi, who doesn't want to be taken care of. Chihaya explains to Yoichi that there is no remedy, since Ibuki will take care of him with all her might, since that is her function since her parents abandoned them, the young woman becoming the mother figure of the rest of the family. Ayame fails cooking, but a skilled Kagome helps her. Later, Yoichi and Ibuki apologize to each other for their actions the day before, much to the dismay dismay of Ayam who had cooked for our protagonist. In this way it is revealed that Ayam always felt like the less successful sister, living in Ibuki's shadow. Yoichi tastes Ayam's soup and compliments her, the sisters reconcile and everything returns to normal. However, two mysterious women arrive in the city, looking for Yoichi. Episode 3. The two mysterious young women visit the big city, and the younger one is amazed. However, the older one reminds her that her true mission is to destroy the representative of the Yukiha Divine Wind Fencing School. Hearing this, the pink-haired young woman runs off, and her companion takes it as a sign of enthusiasm, when in reality, the young warrior has other plans. Ikaruga's sister's house, Ayam is annoyed that Yoichi spends so much time with Ibuki, so her sister Chihaya recommends that she put in a little will and help with the dojo tasks, that way she can spend more time with Yoichi. Tsubasa Tsubame, the young warrior we met recently, transfers into Ibuki and Yoichi's class. Her assistant, Angela, hopes that Tsubasa will quickly defeat Yoichi. However, the young woman has other plans in mind. Tsubasa spends the whole day doing the tasks of an ordinary girl without attacking our protagonists at any time. When the school hours are over, Tsubasa runs into the dangerous Washizu, but the young delinquent treats her delicately, for which she falls madly in love. Angela appears and asks what is going on. After all, the women are on a mission, for which a mysterious benefactor has offered them a large sum of money in exchange for defeating their enemy. Tsubasa runs off again, but this time he crosses our protagonists on the way. When Yoichi comments on how cute she is, Ibuki quickly hits him. Angela seizes the opportunity and removes Tsubasa's clothes in front of Ibuki and Yoichi to transform Tsubasa into a skilled martial artist. Angela tells them that as part of her training, she got used to attacking Tsubasa every time. The young woman was scantily clad in such a way that the trauma became a tool, and now every time she is left in her underwear in front of people she goes into a trance and her combat abilities multiply. Tsubasa attacks Yoichi, but Washizu, believing that the young woman is another victim of the terrible samurai, breaks up the fight, covers her with his jacket and offers to fight Yoichi for her. This snaps Tsubasa out of his stupor, and he runs away from the scene crying. Later, he tells Angela that he hates her and martial arts. Heartbroken and nothing left to lose, Angela challenges Yoichi, but he refuses to fight after he finds out that the motive behind the attack is money. Yoichi explains to Angela that this is the reason why he respects Ibuki and his school, since despite having few students, she teaches by vocation and true love for martial arts. Angela leaves, meets with Tsubasa, and the two apologize to each other. The next day, they start working at a restaurant. Tsubasa does the deliveries and Angela cooks, while Tsubasa is still madly in love with Washizu. Seeing that his first option failed, the mysterious man plans his next move to destroy our protagonist. Episode 4. Chihaya is having trouble finishing her manga on time, so she asks her editor for an extension as she prepares to come up with new ideas to finish her story. Meanwhile, Ibuki and Yoichi put on a sword fighting demonstration in front of Ibuki and Ayam's 4 students. Yoichi accidentally rips Ibuki's clothes with a sword swing, and she punishes him for it. Later, Washizu tries to return Ibuki's handkerchief, but his mind goes a mile a minute creating depressing scenarios, so he decides that he cannot enter the dojo as he is dressed, so he leaves in shame before even entering. Chihaya decides to interview Yoichi for his manga. She takes Yoichi to her room, shows him her manga, and begins to seduce him. Ibuki walks in and hits Yoichi for whatever she thinks he is doing to her sister, but then she excuses him because she hasn't seen her sister happy in a long time. Because Ibuki is like that, she changes her mind right there. The next day, while being chased by a furious Ibuki, who knows why, Yoichi bumps into Kagome and breaks her craft project, and Ibuki beats him up for making Kagome cry. He then orders Yoichi to bring Chihaya, who is at school, his notebook. Yoichi Noi knows about Chihaya's school, so he gets lost and ends up in the girls' locker room, causing everyone to chase after him with murderous intent. At school, the teacher berates Chihaya for drawing in class, humiliating her in front of her classmates. Yoichi finds Chihaya, gives her back her notebook, and as they talk, he realizes that the young woman dedicates as much time to her art as he does to training, so deep down they aren't that different. However, not everyone thinks the same, and Yoichi overhears 3 boys talking about Chihaya behind his back and hinting that she ruined his job. He runs to the class and, seeing her with her torn sleeve eraser, punches the boys. That night Chihaya thanks our hero and shows his family the new character he has created for his manga, which looks very similar to our favorite samurai. Episode 5. On the way to school, Yoichi receives a declaration of love from Yui Hinagata, one of the most popular students in school, which causes the rest of the male students to become jealous, since not only is he dating Ibuki, according to them, but also popular girls ask him out. Yoichi is excited as he believes that the statement is an invitation to fight, so Ibuki is afraid that Yoichi will damage the dojo's reputation. Soaring Wind and takes him on a practice date. The two have a good time and go to a toy store, where she shows interest in a stuffed animal. Ayam, who was at the mall with her friends, sees the two together and follows with Chihaya and Kagome, who also has nothing better to do with her day. Ibuki goes to the bowling alley with Yoichi and the mysterious man watches them, so he then calls one of his agents and he demands that he deal with the matter of destroying Yoichi as quickly as possible. The two then walk through the park where Ibuki tries to hold his hand afterwards, but he turns around and she trips, causing them both to fall into a fountain. Yoichi gives the stuffed animal to Ibuki and thanks her for the practice date. She remembers that this isn't a real date and rushes off to buy drinks, with Chihaya and Kagome watching from behind some bushes. Hinagata meets Yoichi near the fountain, and he declines her request for a date. Hinagata reveals himself to be an enemy agent and tries to destroy Yoichi using a 3-section cane. The two young men fight and Yoichi ruins Yui's uniform, so she runs away. Meanwhile, Ibuki is confronted by two men who criticize her for being with Yoichi. Yoichi, Chihaya, and Kagome hear Ibuki's voice and rush to her aid only to discover that she has easily defeated her attackers. The friends return home, and it is revealed that Hinagata was working for the mysterious man, who berates her for her failure, only to communicate with another of his henchmen, who is riding in the limo behind. Ikaruga's house, Yoichi reveals to Ibuki that he has decided to decline Hinagata's invitation, but without telling him that they were fighting that afternoon. The young man tells him that perhaps his destiny, as a warrior, is to live alone, which makes Ibuki angry with him and goes to sleep. Episode 6. The days pass and Washizu still has not returned the blessed handkerchief. Washizu is beaten up by Ibuki while going after Yoichi for looking at nude female sculptures. In the school infirmary, Washizu daydreams about confessing his love to Ibuki and returning her handkerchief by stuffing a letter into her shoe locker. Washizu fulfills her dream, however, by putting the love letter in the wrong locker. It ends up in Yoichi's hands. Yoichi misinterprets the letter and thinks that Washizu is interested in learning martial arts. Washizu is about to send him flying, but seeing that Ibuki is with him, he lies and says yes, he wants to learn martial arts. Washizu returns the scarf to Ibuki through Yoichi. Meanwhile, a murderer named Nutsum Jinjiro, heir to the Dark Crow School, is assigned to kill Yoichi by the mysterious man. When the mysterious man offers him money, Jinjiro destroys the suitcase with money, saying that he will destroy his enemy, but he won't do it for money. Keita Washizu's friend Toragaya accompanies the delinquent to Ibuki's dojo, where they meet his 4 other students. Ibuki greets everyone and assigns Yoichi the task of teaching Washizu, since the young man is a beginner compared to the other students. Jinjiro continues down the mountain and prepares to fight his nemesis. Meanwhile, the mail arrives at the Ikaraga's house, which Kagome is in charge of delivering, and Chihaya discovers that her manga is going to have a second edition, so a little extra money will come into the house. With the extra money from Chihaya's manga reprint, Chihaya and Kagome buy food and drink for the newcomer. At the dojo, Yoichi hits Washizu with a stick whenever his attention strays from his Saiza position. Ibuki has Yoichi and Washizu perform 1,000 push-ups in front of the students, with the students and Ibuki counting for them. After they both collapse in 1,000 push-ups, Kagome and Chihaya arrive with dinner, and they eat together. Ibuki feeds Washizu, and Ayam does the same for Yoichi. Meanwhile, under the mountain, Jinjiro continues to wait for his enemy, who never received the letter with the challenge and the meeting place, since Kagome got a little distracted and forgot to deliver the letter to Yoichi. Frustrated by the incompetent workforce the mystery man is hiring, his sister decides it's time to get down to business. Episode 7. The group meets on an empty beach after winning a lottery ticket, because apparently that is more common than one would think. All our friends are there, the Ikaruga sisters, Yoichi, Ibuki's students, even Angela and Tsubasa. The only one who is not present is Washizu, who got confused during the day. 2 brothers, students of the Sajinomiya Water Clan, are assigned by the mysterious brothers to defeat Yoichi. One of the brothers releases a trained bird to attack the group, which is targeting the girls. Yoichi bumps into the girls and gets them out of harm's way, but embarrasses them, so he gets hit over and over again. Later, they all get into the water to play, except Kagome. When Ibuki asks why she doesn't want to swim, the girl gets angry and runs into the forest, so Masashi, one of Ibuki's students, follows her. Since sending a 10-year-old to rescue a 10-year-old is never a good idea, the two end up losing it when Kagome falls into a cavern and breaks her fall by landing on Masashi. As the rest of the group searches for them, Masashi and Kagome rush through an exit only to discover that it leads to a cliff high above the sea. Masashi falls and manages to grab onto a tree branch, but is soon released. The group catches up with Kagome and Yoichi jumps into the water to save her. At that moment, the 2 brothers greet the group on surfboards and challenge Yoichi to a fight. Yoichi is busy saving Masashi, so he's at a disadvantage, plus he doesn't have his trusty wooden sword. Kagome jumps into the water and rescues Messi, as well as throwing her Bakken at Yoichi, with which she uses her wind techniques to cause a typhoon and send the surfing brothers flying. All of this is observed by the brothers, who reveal that they were responsible for giving them the tickets to their private island, and that they have carefully filmed the fight for future reference. Later, at the beach, it is revealed that Kagome refuses to participate in water activities due to her embarrassment over her budding buttocks, which which at her age is even bigger than Ayam's, and is why she keeps tying herself up with cloth. At the end of the day, everyone celebrates on the beach, except Washizu, who couldn't find transportation and missed seeing Ibuki in a bathing suit. Episode 8. Washizu is determined to confess to Ibuki about his love letter. Before going to training, the delinquent walks into a store to buy a drink and sees Ayam choose the same bottle, causing an argument. While the two are arguing, a group of delinquents enters the store and recognizes Washizu, so he decides to take a photo, then finds out who is the lady who accompanies him. After training at Ibuki's dojo, Washizu fails to give her the love letter. Ayam also fails to give Yoichi a towel. Washizu's love letter falls out of her kikaji and Ayam picks it up. Washizu tears up the letter before he can read it and falls on top of it, leaving the two in a compromising position. Misunderstandings also wanted that at that moment Tsubasa is delivering ramen to the dojo and opens the door to see Washizu about Ayam. Tsubasa gets nervous, drops the ramen boxes, and runs away. While eating ramen, Yoichi comments on Washizu's sweetness, commenting that he is no longer the fierce delinquent he once was, but is slowly becoming a better person. Washizu realizes that this is true, and doesn't know whether to be happy or not. Since Tsubasa left the box of ramen behind, Yoichi goes to Angela's restaurant to return it, and as he leaves he listens to how the group of criminals who met Washizu in the store are members of a gang that the young man knew how to beat up, and now that he is softened, it is the best time to attack him. In this way, the gang enters the dojo and kidnaps Ayam. Threatening to spread revealing photos of her, they beat up Washizu. As he is beaten, the young man realizes that he has indeed become much weaker compared to the tough criminal he once was. Yoichi intervenes and makes him realize that it is not weakness, but quite the opposite, since he has friends and people to protect, he has become stronger than ever. In this way, the two strike up a momentary truce and together they beat up the gang members. Ibuki appears and misunderstands the situation when she sees her loose-dressed sister, but then everything is fixed and she forgives him. Washizu leaves and Ayam thanks him for what he did with her, handing him a towel. Episode 9. When Yoichi punches Washizu for daydreaming, he runs out of the dojo and yells his confession to Ibuki, which Ayam overhears and thinks is meant for her. Upon his return, Washizu is paired with Ayam, and they fight aggressively with Bakans. Toragaya and Washizu hold a rigged vote for a local festival, but Toragaya messes up and ends up pairing his friend with Ayam. In this way, the groups are as follows: Ayam and Washizu, Yoichi and Ibuki, with Chihaya, Kagome and Toragaya in the final group. During the festival, the brothers of the Sajinomiya clan conspire against Yoichi, revealing that they are the mysterious masked men who are giving our heroes trouble. Yoichi runs to a shooting gallery owned by the Sajinomiya clan and tries to no avail to win a prize. Ibuki wins the main prize for a family to go to a hot spring with a little help from Sakan Sajinomiya, deputy of the Sajinomiya clan. At the same time, Ayam, believing that Washizu is in love with her, hurls constant expletives at Washizu until he clears up his misunderstanding about her confession. Washizu sees Ibuki and Yoichi in the distance and runs off with Ibuki to leave Yoichi with Ayam. He realizes that the person he ran off with is actually Tsubasa wearing a haunted house mask. It is revealed that the Sajinomiya clan tricked Ibuki to win the trip to the hot springs due to clan leader Yukio Sajinomiya's crush on her. Episode 10. Yoichi and the group go to a hot spring for free. They dine with their hostess, an old woman who blames the lack of guests on ghosts. Yoichi and Ibuki volunteer to exorcise the ghosts, because apparently that's something they know how to do. Yes, it's the first time I've heard of that too, and they leave the inn. Immediately after, Yukio and the old woman, who in the best spy movie style, removes her mask revealing that she is actually her sister Sakan, release a sleeping gas throughout the inn. Yoichi and Ibuki fall into a hole after reaching the entrance of a cave and are knocked unconscious. Yoichi wakes up to find Ayam next to him, who begins to seduce him. Meanwhile, Ibuki wakes up and sees Yukio, who tries to rekindle their friendship, but the girl has no idea who the boy is, which makes him very sad. Yoichi rejects Ayam's advances after having deduced that she is not the real one, partly because the original Ayam would never behave like this, and secondly because he has already fallen on her too many times to realize that this version is much more gifted. Sakan, who is very talented in this matter of disguises, reveals himself pretending to be Ayam, and releases a sleeping gas, which is his other talent. Ibuki falls asleep instantly, but Yoichi manages to resist the effects of the gas to a certain extent and goes looking for her. Yukio and her sister take Ibuki away, leaving Yoichi struggling to get back to the inn. On the way to the inn, Yoichi once again faces all the enemies he has encountered throughout the series: Hinagata, the Surfer Brothers, and a ton of ninjas, whom he defeats easily. However, in the state he is in, he is not able to defeat the dangerous Jinjiro, so he receives help from Ayame, who defeats him without too many problems in an anticlimactic battle, because frankly he expected more from poor Jinjiro. Ayam they find Kagome and Chihaya and wake them up to search for Ibuki together. The sisters go into the inn to discover that Yukio and Sakan have disappeared and Ibuki rests peacefully on the floor. However, when the young woman wakes up, something strange happens with her personality. Episode 11. Our heroes return home, but everything has changed since due to the Saginomiya brothers' sleeping gas, Ibuki's mind returns to when he was 4 years old. Ibuki wants to know where her parents are, and her sisters lie to her that they are traveling. The final straw is the fact that this version of Ibuki, with memories of a 4-year-old girl, doesn't acknowledge Kagome's existence, which breaks the girl's heart. Her clumsiness and refusal to acknowledge Kagome's existence make her a burden to those around her. Yukio and Sakan arrive at the dojo, and when our heroes threaten to call the police unless they get their sister back to normal, apparently no one thought of taking her to a doctor. The brothers tell them that if that happens, to stay away. They forget an antidote. The villain also explains to them that Ibuki's mental state is due to his own choice, as Sakan's medication is designed to bring his mind back to a moment of happiness, in this case, the life Ibuki had before his parents. They will abandon them. In this way, the Saginomiya explain to our heroes that it will take a couple of months to create the antidote, so for that time they offer the Ikaruga a lifestyle of first-class celebrities in exchange for Ibuki. Our heroes are tempted by the offer, as it seems easier to sell their brain-damaged sister than to get her seen by a real doctor. Meanwhile, Washizu and Toragaya find Ibuki lying face down in front of her dojo. Washizu buys new clothes for Ibuki and plays with her. Yukio forces Yoichi to learn the art of the sword from Angela. Meanwhile, the Saginomiyas stun Washizu and kidnap Ibuki. Ayame and Chihaya lead the life of luxury that abandoning their sister has earned them quite well, confident that when Ibuki recovers, she will send Yukio for a walk and the problem will solve itself while they live surrounded by luxuries. However, Chihaya and Ayame discover that Kagome is missing, and after a brief search, they find her in her room crying and hugging her craft project. This gives the others an initiative to find Ibuki. Yoichi tells Angela to wait for him. He, Ayame, Kagome, and Chihaya leave the dojo looking for Ibuki. Meanwhile, Tsubasa finds Washizu and takes him to a hospital. Episode 12. Yoichi, Kagome, Chihaya, and Ayame arrive at the Saginomiya's residence and cross the river surrounding the castle using a makeshift raft. Yukio orders Sakan to drive away Yoichi's group, which she reluctantly agrees to, not because she is against her brother's plan, but rather because she considers that they should get rid of the intruders first before officiating the wedding. Yoichi's group enters the castle and meets Sakan, who reveals his brother's plan to marry Ibuki. When they refuse to leave, she orders her maids to shoot them. Yoichi protects his group by blocking the bullets with his Bakken. Sakan has the worst idea in the world, wanting to gas directly against someone whose technique is literally wind, so it backfires on him using sleeping gas and makes his maids fall asleep when Yoichi uses his technique and returns the gas. Yoichi pleads with her to give Ibuki back, trying to make her see how she would feel if someone kidnapped her brother, but she slaps him and disappears. Meanwhile, Yukio remembers the day he got engaged to Ibuki. When they were both 4 years old, Yukio visited the dojo. Ikaruga, and a playful Ibuki gave him a beating, which impressed the boy and proposed to marry her when she was an adult. The girl, who did not understand anything, said yes, and this brings us to the little predicament we found ourselves in. Today, Yoichi's group encounters more guards, and Washizu, Tsubasa, Angela, and Toragaya intervene. Yoichi, Kagome, Chihaya, and Ayame chase Sakan to the chapel, where Yukio is preparing her wedding. However, he and Ibuki escape through a hidden platform, proving that these people have a lot of money. Yoichi follows him to the roof, where they fight each other. Ibuki regains her memory, but falls off the roof. Both Yoichi's group and Yukio try to follow him, but Sakan holds Yukio while Yoichi's group falls into the river. Everyone in Yoichi's group survives the fall. Yoichi sends a letter to his father stating his wishes to remain in the dojo. Ikaruga, a letter that his father reads and throws away, since he couldn't care less what his son does, and I don't even know if he even remembered that he had one, so our hero can continue having adventures with his friends. In this way this curious series ends. Yes, there are many stories to tell, many mysteries to solve. If you are like me, you want Ayame to stay with Washizu. But this is all the time we have for today. If you like this summary, let me know in the comments. Also, if you want to recommend a series or want a greeting, if you have not subscribed to the channel, would you do me a favor if you do, and if you recommend it? For my part one, say goodbye until next time.